Hi, I'm Mandy Sprague, and today we're going to be talking adventure travel on the book spot. I recently finished reading The Lost City of Z, A Tale of Deadly Obsession in the Amazon by David Grann, and it was a fascinating book. It was hard to put down. The book delves into the fascinating disappearance of British explorer Percy Fawcett in 1925 during his obsessive quest to uncover a lost Amazonian civilization, which many of us refer to as El Dorado, but he called the Lost City of Z. After Fawcett's disappearance into the jungle, many other explorers and amateur adventurers set off in search of his missing party. The author estimates hundreds of explorers being drawn into the jungle with what the locals called Fawcett fever. To many, it seemed like a suicidal mission. There was a lot that was still unknown about that unexplored region of the Amazon, and people who went in to look for him contracted diseases, they suffered starvation, and some of them just never came out. It was a dangerous business, so much so that the British government banned search parties for Fawcett and his party, and future missions had to be okayed by the Brazilian government. Percy Fawcett was experienced, having had many other expeditions in the Amazon region, including his early work mapping the tributaries of the Amazon River for the Royal Geographic Society. Where many others failed, Percy excelled, and he was at home in the green hell, as he called it. While his companions contracted yellow fever or malaria, he seemed immune to these horrific diseases. He was very strong and had great stamina, often setting 20-mile-per-day pace through the thick undergrowth that they'd have to cut through. Other people just couldn't keep up with him. So to Percy's wife and the world, he just seemed invincible. So what happened was he killed by a tribe he was unfamiliar with. Did he succumb to starvation and exhaustion in the jungle? Or did he actually find the Lost City of Z or some other civilization and stay? Some of the people that the author talks to and some of the research he has done indicates that he was maybe not planning on returning. Is that what happened? I don't know. I'll let you read the book and see what the author thinks. The fascinating topic aside, I truly enjoyed Grann's writing style. He takes a layered approach to the book, so you start off with Fawcett first learning about El Dorado and his subsequent geographic adventures in the Amazon. He's gaining experience. He seems to be immune to all of these diseases that other explorers are succumbed to. You learn about, how a strong person he is. He just did things other people couldn't, and he did them in very quick amount of time. These expeditions that he's had, he finished, I think, a year early on some of them. It was just amazing the things he could accomplish. So you kind of start off learning a little bit more about his character, what motivates him. And then you cut to 1996 and another party that goes in to solve the Fawcett mystery and what happens to that party. And then you also get to learn about the author and his travels to London to do research, and then later to Brazil and the Amazon and see how far he gets. And it's just fascinating to have that layered approach where you kind of go back and forth, and it just keeps you on your toes, but not in a way that is confusing. I just found every time there was a new chapter and it's like, oh, we're switching back to this other perspective. Where did we leave off with them? Oh, okay, what's happening with them now? It just was really interesting. It was kind of almost like a documentary approach, but in a book, if that makes sense. I just really appreciated his style, and it just kept me really involved. And that's where I got that, I couldn't put the book down aspect. I really enjoyed that part of the book. So a couple of years ago, a feature film by the same name of the book was produced, and it starred Charlie Hunnam. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He was in Sons of Anarchy, and he portrays Fawcett in the film. And then Tom Holland from Spider-Man plays his son and his companion on this final journey, Jack. And it's what ultimately led me to reading the book. I saw the movie first. I thought it was an interesting premise. I enjoyed the story. and I knew I wanted to read the book. I thought it was just, basically the book, but in movie form. But the book is so much better, which I often find. I think many of us readers find that the book is better. The movie, you don't get the story of the research by Grann or anything, because I don't think they're connected. So it's just the story of Fawcett, but it's also like a shorter snippet of it. You don't kind of get everything that leads into it. Still, it's a fascinating thing. I think I would recommend reading the book and watching the movie. I've often found that if you watch the film and then read the book, you're able to enjoy both of them for what they are, instead of kind of being disappointed by one or the other. But I would highly recommend it. It was very interesting for me. All right, so time for some reader's advisory. I'm gonna have to look at my notes here. So if you are interested in adventure, travel, mystery, historical, I guess mystery in a historical sense, or just wanderlust in general, I have some reading recommendations. So Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI is David Grann's other book that's more recent than The Lost City of Z, and he's probably more well known for that one. That tells the story of the Osage Indians who are forced to move from their ancestral lands and find that their new land has been, the new land that they've been forced onto is oil rich. So after they become wealthy from mining the oil, members of the tribe are murdered left and right. All of a sudden they're just coming across all of these people who have been killed. And it's kind of looking into those murders and telling that story. Sarah Vowell writes historical travel books that are layered, just like the layering in the writing style of this book. So she has it layered with history and her autobiographical travelogue. So she explores some really interesting topics, including that of her book Assassination Vacation, where she takes on an unusual road trip in the US by visiting locations of political murders and looking into their history and talking about her experiences there. It's just really interesting. She just has fascinating topics that she covers in her books. Adventurous Son is the story of a National Geographic explorer, Roman Dial's 2-year quest to find his son, who went exploring in the jungles of Costa Rica. So they had done some exploration together, and he decided to go do this exploration on his own. This, of course, is in similar vein to Into the Wild, which is John Krakauer's modern classic, about Chris McCandless venturing off into the Alaskan wilderness unprepared, and then passing away in the wilderness. Wild, from the Lost and Found on the Pacific Crest Trail, is a book that takes place after the loss of the author's mother. So Cheryl Strayed decides to hike the more than 1,000 miles, the 1,000 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, and her experience with that and her growth as a person. And then the last book I wanted to recommend is A Walk in the Woods, Rediscovering America on the Appalachian Trail by Bill Bryson. He has a humorous writing that covers history and ecology and the interesting people he meets along the way as he as he hikes the Appalachian Trail. So really interesting book. So thanks for joining us for another episode of The Book Spot. I hope you thought it was interesting. This is one of those books that I just want to talk more about, but I don't want to ruin any details for you. So sometimes it's kind of hard to talk about those books, but really fascinating. I highly recommend it. Of course, I always love to hear what you guys are reading. If you like travel adventure, what have you read? Is there something that I missed on the list that you really liked? Let me know in the comments below. I hope to see you guys soon. I'll try and have some fiction next time. I've kind of been on a nonfiction roll here. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.